Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It is Monday, and as I said earlier, it is Financial Inclusion Week, and I've got my good friend Bridget Greenwood with The Bigger Pie here to talk with us, well, about blockchain and how we can increase diversity and women inclusion in this field. Bridget, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
I'm very well indeed, and thank you so much for inviting me on your show. It's a real privilege. We've enjoyed a few conversations before this, so yeah, I'm looking forward to today. Thank you, and good morning and afternoon, evening to everyone wherever you are.
That's right. That's right. Because we got people all over the globe, and so it is great. You always got to make sure to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, no matter where you are. Shout out to Stellar Ireland who just checked in. Says hi. So that's
Hello.
wonderful. That's great. That's great. So let's start off, Bridget. Why don't you just I guess give a little intro about yourself, and how you got introduced to the tech field and blockchain.
Okay, so I, how far back do we go? Um, I used to be what we call in the UK an IFA, an independent financial advisor, and I loved
Okay.
that role. I traveled around in the geographically local area that I was in. And I would get to meet new people, and you'd ask them all sorts of questions about their health and their wealth and what their goals were, and help them to understand what it is that was important to them. And then you could give them a financial plan to be able to help them to best achieve that. And I really loved it. But then in 2004, I had my son. And when I had him, I was on my maternity leave, and the directors at the company said, "Do you know what? We want to make sure that we only have high writing, high achieving financial planners with us. So we're going to set the bar so that unless they write this amount of business each year, we're going to take a huge percentage of their earnings, which is going to make sure that those people are interested." I wasn't at the table to turn around and say, "But what about me? I'm on maternity leave. Can we have something pro rata?" And so I wasn't able to go back to that. There were a few other factors as well. The regulations were changing. I had to upskill. There wasn't childcare facilities for me. And traveling around where I live, because I could be on the road for an hour and a half, 2 hours away from home, coming back again, when you don't have parental responsibilities is fine. But of course, that changes when you have children. So I had to reimagine my career. And I live in what we call in the UK the sticks, in the
The
countryside.
sticks.
The sticks.
Nice, 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 nice.
So I've got farmlands on one side and I've got the sea on the other. And there isn't much in terms of population and places to go and be employed in. So when I was ready to go back to work, I had to reimagine what that looked like.
Hmm.
And so I looked at the device in front of me. I looked at how I could use the internet and how I could use social media platforms to attract business to me. And then that led me to starting financial social media, which I saw
Wow.
in the States actually. And I said to the woman in the States who was running this, Amy McElwain, I said, "Oh, I love what you're doing. I understand about social media. I understand the financial services market in the way that I've been operating in it. So let's take your business across." After a year, the markets and the time zone meant that it wasn't a good fit for us to work together. So I then just carried on with Financial Social Media UK. So that was really interesting, and I enjoyed that. But rather than being a financial advisor, I was now working with financial service companies. And it was really interesting, actually, because this is 2011. And in
Okay.
2011, digital marketing didn't really exist. Banks and financial services companies did not touch social media. So social
Mm.
media came from individuals, and that's where the mass adoption came, right?
Right.
And then companies like financial services, where they're heavily regulated, and I'm sure that there were similarities across in the pharmaceutical world as well, where they're heavily regulated, where like our clients are not on social media. Our clients wouldn't want to discuss any of their finances on social media. We don't really understand what social media is. It's a reputational risk and it's a regulatory risk. And then we fast forward to where we are today. There's not a business in the world that doesn't have a digital marketing plan and what they do with if they have a marketing plan.
Sounds
No
a
one would
lot
do
the way like blockchain is going right now,
it.
right? Very similar.
And that's what I'm saying. I see exact parallels in terms of, and particularly in the financial services sector. I remember I wrote a white paper about why financial services companies, wealth managers, would want to start considering cryptocurrency in their portfolios. But it was too early. But
Right,
anyway,
right.
so so I was doing financial social media. I hadn't wanted to do it on my own. I did it for a number of years. I really enjoyed it, but I was always working on my own. And the way that social media had matured through that time, whereas when I was, looking at it, there was no Instagram. Zuckerberg didn't have the control of the data that we have now. There wasn't
Right.
the massive data that there is. There wasn't the abuse of data that there is, as far as I see it. It was much more about organic, about creating great content that would attract people to you. So as the social media market changed, I didn't feel comfortable feeding that
Mm-hmm.
machine. I also wanted to be part of a team. And two sectors of people had spoken to me about Bitcoin.
Wow.
Uh, so I was like, oh, I'm really interested in Bitcoin. And then I went down the rabbit hole of, well, what is Bitcoin and what problem is it trying to solve? And effectively, it was a 2008 financial crash that was completely
Mm.
manipulated and man made. And it was like, okay, if we want to hedge our risk about being exposed to these centralized organizations who are meant to be there to protect us, but time and time again have shown to be flawed in that, surely there should be an alternative that people could go into. Sounds like a worthy problem to be tackling. So then, of course, I went down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin, particularly through Andreas Antonopoulos. I absolutely adore him in terms of how he
Yeah,
speaks
yeah. Shout out to Andreas. Yeah, for sure.
100% about how he speaks about it in a language that non-technical people like myself can understand. And hi, Amir. And he's written a book on coding. So that was really interesting. But I still couldn't figure out how to purchase Bitcoin myself. And then a friend of mine said, who was one of the groups of people who was also talking to me about Bitcoin, well, I can help you with that. So now I understood what fiat money was, which as a financial advisor, the word fiat currency doesn't come up at all.
Right. Very true. Very true.
It's just not mentioned. You just go into the system. The system is pretty much working for most of us in the financial services sector. And for those it's not working for, you don't see them. They're not on your radar. That's my experience. And we just blindly do what we do. The other thing that I think is interesting to note, particularly when I stepped away from being an actual financial advisor myself, so I could look at a bigger picture, was that if it's a regulated product or service, then financial advisors are all about it. If it's outside of their scope, they tend to be more snobbish about it,
Oh
for
yeah.
want of a better word.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah. I
so
experienced that directly, because my financial advisor was very snobbish about about anything outside of basically what she was able to sell me, right?
that's it, right? Can I advise on this?
I love
This
you,
is
by the way, if you're listening, though. I know you're listening, so I love you, by the way. I didn't mean that bad, but you know what I mean. You know what I
there is
mean.
a
Yeah.
bias there. There is a bias there, which we understand.
Yeah.
All human beings have bias.
Right.
Um, but when you're in it, you don't notice it so much. And when I was outside of it, I was like, oh, there really is a huge bias. So, of course, cryptocurrency by the traditional financial sector is going to be disregarded or belittled or ignored initially
Right.
because they don't understand it. It's not part of their regulation. If it won't be regulated, then it can't be taken seriously. And fundamentally, as well, if you're setting up a system that is going to be in competition with the financial services, why would they embrace it?
Right.
Um, anyway, so yes, so my friend said to me, "Send me some fiat, download this app, which is a wallet, and I'll send you your BTC." And I went, "That was so ridiculously easy." He said, "Yeah." So I was his second client. His first client was his mum. And then he said to
Nice.
me, I want to do this as a business. Would you like to join me? And so, because I was now able to work in a team, because I was able to step away from an industry that I didn't like the way that it had turned out, and into something which I thought had a very promising future. Back in 2017, I said yes, and that's how I got into the sector.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, and that company has gone on under the leadership of the CEO to be BCB Group now, which actually is becoming the bank for the financial institutions. So it's an amazing journey that they've been on, and congratulations to that startup.
Which is huge, and I mean, that company is behind. I mean, the I guess the banking rails for the likes of, I want to say, like Coinbase, Kraken, some of the largest exchanges that are out there, which is pretty big.
Yeah. So what we
and
recognize,
and that was how we connected, as a side note as well.
yes,
So yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah.
Group, indeed. So that was really interesting, that journey, because it didn't start off with BCB Group. It started off as a different company and retail facing, and then quickly we realized actually the retail market was well served, but the institutional market wasn't served at all, and it couldn't get into the space until such time as the rails are needed for institutions to come into play. Because whilst cryptocurrency might, I mean, in different jurisdictions it has different regulations, and some it still, I don't think it has regulations, and there's a lot that I think we'll still need to see in that area. Um, but you still need to act as if you're regulated. You still need to have the
Correct.
right custodianship. You still need to be able to manage the assets correctly. You still need to be able to do all of those. And those services just weren't available. So kudos to all of the companies in the crypto winter that carried on building those. So when we've seen the resurgence again, institutions have the opportunity to step in now.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the bigger pie. The bigger
Yes.
pie is great organization, and I guess to give some backgrounds here. As many of you guys know, I founded with a couple of my friends the Stellar Global community, and our focus has really been on just strengthening that financial inclusion ties. And it was honestly through one of our ambassadors in the Caribbean community, Dorian, who really pointed out, hey, we have a lack of women involved within Stellar Global, and if we're going to be out here, you know, advocating for inclusivity, we have to do more on our part. And so, from your perspective, Bridget, what motivated you to create the bigger pie?
So I gave you one instance of just being a woman and not being at the table to have my needs
Right.
represented had impacted me negatively in my career. There, there are other examples of that. And when I
Sure.
saw this technology, how not just Bitcoin but blockchain itself, and there are other uh, incredible platforms, layer one, layer two, etc., who are all trying to solve real world problems. I saw a couple of things. One was we were having another massive transference of wealth, and
Yes.
I didn't want to sit back and watch it happen and have half of the population miss out just because of their gender, because historically that's kind of what's happened. So I didn't want to see that happen again. Two, it's so ridiculously important that if you're going to be solving global problems or problems across the globe, the people who are facing those problems, everyone needs to be at the design, development, and deployment table. There's a book called The Invisible Woman, is often cited. It's a brilliant book, and it shows example after example after example after example of what happens when you don't include the people that you're trying to solve a solution for into that problem. Um,
Wow.
Women make up
That's
half of the
that's
world.
Hey, that's an important statement. That's an important. And what was the name of that book again?
It's called Invisible Women.
The
So
Invisible Woman. Wow.
the Invisible Woman. I can't remember the name of the authors. I'm so sorry, but I'm sure that we can get it out there. And yes, so whether it's a climate change, whether it's in healthcare, no matter what it is, basically the world, particularly in the medical sector, the world has said, right, the average person is this height, is a man. Seatbelts, for example, seatbelts designed for men. So pregnant women, it was more harmful for them to wear a seatbelt than it was,
Wow.
because they were designed for a different shape. If you're going into the army, if you're in the police force, your uniform is designed for a man and not for a woman. So there are just so many reasons why you need to have everyone at design development deployment table, and women are half the population. The women that are in the industry, particularly when I joined in 2017, 2018, and I had a look around, are incredible. And I'm sure the men are too, but I didn't do the research on the men, right? But if you're going into a nascent sector where you have your vision and that's all you've got. You've got to build on the tech. You've got to bring people on the journey. You can see it and you're visionary. Um, these women are highly educated, speak multiple languages, have career histories that are just amazing, and they want to put their hand out to the next generation of people who are coming into the sector. And I just wanted to hang out with these women. I wanted to figure out what I could do to be able to contribute to building a better world, plugged into this technology. And so the bigger pie is how it came about, because these women are doing amazing things. And the more women we have in the sector, the more that we can have more, as I say, more diversity at the design development deployment table, the more effective your business is, the kinder we are in terms of the solutions that we build to all of our stakeholders. And it's not about extraction. It's about and just profits for shareholders. It really is building stakeholder economies.
Wow, wow. I'm just looking here, kind of scrolling through some of the incredible women that you have as part of your experts, and if you guys are listening out here and have a chance to go to the biggerpie.io and just look at the incredible backgrounds of the women that you have here. I don't want to hear anybody have an event, have a panel, and tell me that you can't find a qualified woman to fill a role on that panel. Because here's a great resource right here. One of the great things is even when I first got introduced to the Stellar Development Foundation, I was really happy to see so much diversity. I mean, from the CEO with Danelle Dixon, one of the first people I met when the development side was Corey Hinson, and there were just so many more women that were a part of the organization. But we need more of that. We need absolutely more. Now, your Bigger Pie also offers several services that I wanted to kind of highlight here.
Sure.
Um, Let me see if I can go back here to the top.
Yeah. So we're, because of the experts that we have in our community, we're now attracting companies who want to access that, both in terms
Wow.
of the full-on expertise that they have, particularly when you're in a nascent sector, right? You're a startup or a growing organization, and you're growing fast. Hiring people quickly with the right expertise, being able to bring it in the amount of human resource you need to be able to do, and then sort of retract it as and when maybe campaigns are being led or development is going on, is really quite difficult. So that's something that companies are finding out, that actually if they come to us, then we have experts across development, regulation, or marketing, or strategy, tokenomics, legals. So, it kind of can be a one-stop shop in terms of being able to deliver some of the expertise that you need. So that's one of the services that we have. The other one, thank you so much, was we're doing everything we can do along with the other communities. So there are a number of different women in blockchain communities. And the great thing is that we all work collaboratively together. So each community
Right.
has their own uh, has their own focus, their own vibe, their own tonality, their own tribe, but we're all looking to serve the same end goal. So it's great that we're able to collaborate and do things together. And we very much want to remove collectively the phrase, we can't find the women, we can't find the qualified women. So,
Yeah.
do come to the bigger pie, because if we can't find who you need within our community, we'll reach out to the other communities that we all talk to find what you need in terms of event speakers, in terms of keynote speakers, panelists, and in terms of hiring as well.
Right, right, right. Let's talk about in terms of hiring. You shared a vision, zero to CTO.
Yes.
I think I mean, it's such a great phrase. I wish I thought about it. It's
Thank
so
you.
awesome. But I mean, I think it's great too because it's one thing that I really admire about you, Bridget. Honestly, is that um, you saw a problem, and then you, rather than just tweeting about it or talking about it, you're really creating a vehicle to say, hey, look, you know what? There's not enough women in leadership positions. I'm going to take it upon myself to create an organization that is now going to help produce that, right?
Mm.
Because you know what? Somebody can sit down and say, hey, I have a panel and I couldn't find a qualified woman to be on there. But guess what? Now you can say, yes, you can. A company can say, hey, you know what? I would love to hire some more women in leadership positions, but I couldn't find any women. Well,
Mm.
yes, you can. So talk to us a little bit about zero to CTO.
So zero to CTO is still it's in its early stages, so we kind of have an exclusive, I guess,
All
here.
right.
But in terms of supply and demand, when you've got emerging technology, there just isn't enough supply to match the demand because we need to upskill people in the field. So, one thing I would like to say is if you are listening and you're interested in coming into the area of blockchain, but you haven't got there yet, please get in touch because there are various ways that we can help you. And especially if you're in leadership roles, we need more women to come in at the senior level. So they need to be able to transfer your skills, just like everybody else has in this nascent sector. Transfer your skills from where you've been, and we can upskill you within the sector.
and
Because
and and and
otherwise,
and, 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 and briefly, why is that important, right? Why is it important? Because we talked about this before, and I want you to share this. It's important to have women be in leadership positions.
so a recent report out in the UK, Women on Boards, came out, and it showed that we have mandates in the UK, and FTSE 100 companies, I believe it was meant to be 33% are at least women on boards. And all those companies who achieved at least the minimum, they had more profitability, they hired better for diversity, they hired more women. Women in leadership positions will hire more women than if you don't have women in leadership positions. We like to attract people that we see and recognize in ourselves. So,
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame men in senior positions hiring other men because they're just hiring people that they see in themselves, which is why we need to get diversity at senior level inclusion so that people can hire with some biases. We can also
Right.
hire for diversity, not in spite of diversity. And then, you can have these teams of experts who have different experience, not just technically, but also through how they lived their lives. It brings huge profits to companies, and as well as, the social requirements to have opportunities for everyone across the board. So yes, so wherever you are, we need to bring that in. In terms of zero to CTO, there just aren't enough engineers. We do not have enough CTOs, full stop, no matter what gender you are. Um, so we need to create more engineers. And why not create more female engineers and allow them that fast track roadmap to CTO? Because there's research out there that shows that there are barriers that women face. And I'm sure that there are other underestimated communities that face similar barriers. So if we can make it successful for gender representation, I'm sure we can make it successful for other underrepresented, underestimated communities too. So why don't we say, okay, there's technical skills, there's understanding how to do the job, and then there's so much more to be able to progress in what you're doing. So where is the extra support that's needed, and let's work with the ecosystem to be able to put those opportunities in place.
Wonderful, 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 wonderful. And you talked about different communities, and I kind of teed up a little bit earlier as far as how we got connected, and just to go back a little bit, and looking at what we were doing at Stellar Global, and realizing that we're being hypocritical in our approach by not aggressively seeking out more inclusion within our system and our community. And just as we just said is possible, and it's proven, is that all you got to do is look. All you have to do is look. And sure enough, we were able to connect to a mutual friend who is a woman in a blockchain company. And she mentioned Sam. So shout out to Sam out there. Thank you so much. She told me that you need to speak with Bridget. And through our conversations, I'm very excited about what we're looking to do as far as helping to contribute training and educational material as far as what Stellar provides and the opportunities there with the larger, bigger pie community. Because there is an opportunity right now with blockchain to be your own boss, to be a founder of your own company. There's so much opportunity out there, and really just about educational materials. And so I know that that's something that we're going to start working on right away to help provide some training on blockchain, um, some training on how women and people of all diverse backgrounds can really utilize the networks to help to create their own levels of inclusion. And then we're also looking on our Stellar Global Discord, opening up a bigger pie channel, which is going to be
Mm,
focused. It's going to be really a welcoming platform for women in blockchain, and not just women in blockchain, but people that are really open to
everyone.
inclusionary discussions.
Yeah,
Because something that you pointed out, Bridget, is that you know what, we really need everybody together that's got the same mindset and focus of inclusion, right? In
mm.
the mission of inclusion to be part of the conversation. Go ahead, you're going to say something.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about our collaboration because it's an ability. So one of the things that we've been building in the Bigger Pie is to make sure that we've got a safe space for the women in blockchain to be able to have discussions and discourse. And at the moment, the way that the world is set up, having somewhere that is just for women is something that's necessary because these conversations don't seem to be able to take shape at the moment within mixed communities. As I'm sure that we get to a more balanced society, full stop, then the need for those will dissipate. So we don't have anywhere to have at the moment. We haven't got a home to have a conversation with all of our male allies and everybody else who shares this vision. So I'm really excited. The bigger pie, the whole reason I've called it the bigger pie is that the more people who come to the table, the table doesn't have 12 seats and that's it. It's the more people who come
Mm,
to, we just make a bigger table, right? It's we just create more together than we would do if we worked individually.
I love
So
that.
being able to do this with the Stellar Global community and have a channel that's like, okay, if you're all about open and understanding of female representation, and when we say female, we do mean across the board, transgender included, however you identify, just come along because I know that I've spoken to a number of people in the transgender sector, and you look at the stats for BAME. I mean,
Mm.
there's just an awful lot of people out there who are underestimated, who don't have somewhere where they can go and feel as though that they belong. And let's provide those places.
That is absolutely great, and we are definitely gonna open that up in the coming weeks and really expose that for everybody. And I just want to go back to what you said about the bigger pie, because so many times, I mean, even within the crypto world, right? It's this false belief that there's some small table. There's this small table, as you mentioned, of 12 people, and if there's somebody else that's maybe another chain that offers a tool or a feature that yours doesn't, if there's another group and that it's somehow taking away from you. But no, there is an abundance and opportunity, folks.
100%.
There is an abundance of opportunity that's out there, and it is it's amazing, and I really wish that more people could really grapple this. I think that it'll just be a most a more fulfilling world to live in, if everybody really, if whether regardless of race, creed, beliefs, sexuality, gender identification, whatever it is. If you just embraced everybody, you'll see that no one's taking anything from you. We can actually build more, grow more, and have more
Yeah.
together. So,
So yeah,
go ahead.
wake up every day and have an attitude of gratitude to what you have, and think about abundance, and then you'll see all the ways that can happen.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to wrap this up. The Bigger Pie, TheBiggerPie.io. The Bigger Pie. This is Bridget Greenwood, founder of The Bigger Pie. It was a pleasure having you. This is going to be on YouTube. It's gonna remain on Twitter to continue to replay. So those in different time zones will be able to catch up on this, and it will also be released on Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts. So an audio version will also be released to be spread around. So it was a pleasure having you, Bridget. Great
A real
conversation.
pleasure for me.
I'm really happy to meet you and look forward to seeing the growth over the years of the Bigger Pie.
And with Stella Global too. Thank you so much.
All right, hold on one second, everyone. Bye.
Okay.
Later on this week, I've got the. You guys have heard about Wire. They've been recently partnered with Visa and Stellar to utilize the Stellar version of the USDC. And it's a very interesting talk. We're going to be talking about the world of lending and what their plans are to help accelerate financial inclusion for the rest of the world. So I'll be back with that later this week. See you guys soon.